So today I'm going to talk a little bit about failure. Generally, when you see people celebrating, they'll be celebrating and talking about successes. Whenever I'm asked to do like a blog interview or like a newspaper interview or anything like that, again, the interview will always be focused around success. Now, I think the thing that's influenced me most and kind of modeled me most as an individual hasn't been any successes I may have had, it's actually my failures. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of failure that has influenced me most up until this point. A few years ago, I made, when I was kind of 16, 17 years old and I was in sixth form, I made a short film called Nerf War the Movie. There was kind of 20, 30 of us involved. It was like this little action film with Nerf guns, and it was really, really good fun to make. We all had an amazing time. And I edited this into this short, and it kind of put it out online to the audience and to my peers, and it went down really, really well. And so it was after this, I got really, really excited about filmmaking. And I decided that as I was at sixth form and I had like 100 people I could have involved in my projects and such, I decided that I would make a feature film, a post-apocalyptic film called The Fallen. We filmed the entire film over 1 year with like explosions, sets we built. We drove all over the country to film in abandoned locations. There was like 100 people involved, and actually the main character was played by a good friend of mine to this day, David Rock. Filming The Fallen was probably one of the best experiences of my life, and I still kind of look back on it as one of the best times in my life. Despite my attendance from my sixth form dropping to like 40% and me nearly being kicked out and not being allowed to take my A-levels. After spending a year working on this film, there were a lot of people that were really, really excited to see it. People who put a huge amount of time into it. And so, as we were filming it, it was still unfinished, we booked a date over the summer to have a cinema screening where everyone could come down, after which everyone would be going off to university and stuff like that, and we could all get together one last time and watch what we had made. Now, the problem arose 3 days before the premiere itself, and we hadn't finished the film. We literally had the last day of filming, and we had a load of editing to do. So I went into panic/overdrive mode, and I stayed up for 3 days solid. I did all this crazy amount of editing, and I had a huge number of people who came out and they would help me almost in shifts. And they would come and edit with me, and they'd maybe go home and sleep and shower and whatever, and then come back. And it was a really, really intense time in my life. Now, we used to have this routine where every time we were editing, kind of about 3 o'clock in the morning, we would go out and we'd go for a little walk, me and whoever else was there editing with me. And I remember going out the morning of the premiere, so 3 AM, we had like, 18 hours till the film was meant to be screened. And we went out. I remember kind of laying in the road, we were just kind of hanging out and suddenly feeling like a little bit paranoid, a little bit unwell. And it was because I've been staying up and had all this caffeine. So I get up and I just say to my friend, I think I'm gonna jog back. And I remember as I kind of started to jog back to the house, I became increasingly panicked. And I like freaked out, like ran back to the house, shut the door, and I just had like the huge thing of like paranoia. I was just in such a bad state at this point. But we had 18 hours to try and get this film finished. So Tom came back, the guy who I was editing with at the time, and I kind of calmed down by then, and we carried on editing, and a couple of hours later we had a power cut, and we lost like 6 to 8 hours of work. Which was absolutely devastating, but again, there was nothing we could do about it, we just had to kind of push on. I remember posting on the Facebook page saying that we were going to be starting like an hour or two later, and we kind of carried on working, we bought ourselves some more time, and we managed to get the film like finished-ish, like just about, exactly around the time that we were going to have to leave. But the problem was we hadn't exported the film, we hadn't exported it out of the software, and we hadn't burned it to a DVD disc. So I remember this moment where I loaded up the export settings, I pressed export, and I turned to Ben and Tom and I said, whatever number this says, whatever the computer says is the amount of time it'll take to export this. It was a good computer, is how late we're going to be for this premiere. And it kind of, the computer went away and it loaded up, and there was a bit of a moment before it came up on the screen, and then it came up and it said 8 hours. So I rang the cinema up and I told them what was going on, and I spoke to them, and they said that I'd be able to plug in my computer directly into the projector itself. which was amazing. So we threw my desktop computer in the back of my car and we like rushed off the cinema as fast as we could. I was in an absolute state, having not slept 3 days, had a load of caffeine and being unbelievably stressed. We finally arrive at the cinema and there's far more people have turned up to see this film than I thought would. There's just like loads of friends, loads of family, loads of like friends of friends who've like seen the film and us making it on Facebook and stuff and have been curious enough to come along. And it was really stressful. So we arrived like half an hour late and then we spend like 45 minutes like hooking up like my desktop computer to their projector to try and make it work. The sound doesn't really work properly, it's a little bit crackly, but we think it's gonna be okay. So I then have to make this short speech before the film. And the whole time I feel like I'm on the verge of tears. There's like probably, you know, like 70 people in front of me, all of which who have like come out to support me. And I feel like I've really let them down, really let them down. So I make this kind of little speech, manage to get through it. We sit down, the film starts, and it's so unfinished. There are areas that I've missed, there's bits of music that's too loud, there's areas where there's like cinema, there's like color correction done. Then there were times when like there were 2 bits of music playing over the top of each other so you couldn't even hear the music properly. And then to make things worse, after like 10-15 minutes, it went black and you could only hear the sound. And I rushed up to the rushed up to the office where they gave me the keys and they like let me into the projector room. And I realized that what had happened is my computer had gone to sleep. So I like had to wiggle the mouse and like rewind the film. And the whole thing was just an utter disaster. I then had to spend the remaining kind of like 45-50 minutes sat in this projector room, just kind of watching my film through like the window out into the cinema. And the whole thing just was a car crash, something which I'd watched, like put so much effort into and so many other people had invested their time into, and I just watched it fall apart in front of my eyes, and it was absolutely devastating. And the worst bit was actually at the end of the premiere, on the way out, when I had to stand at the kind of the back and wave everyone off as they all went off to the pub or whatever else, and we were going to have a party. And it was just like everyone was just really disappointed, and I was really disappointed, and everyone was really, really good about it and really supportive. So it was just really bad. It was really bad. This feeling of like public humiliation, it just made me really not want to make films anymore. Having felt so excited about like my career in terms of what I wanted to do and like what the people around me would be doing, maybe even contributed by The Fallen, and it just, yeah, made me want to give up. This is the main problem with failure, is that people perceive failure, they take it, and then that's the end. It wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to happen. Things just didn't quite come together, and I could have said all of those things about The Fallen and about filmmaking in general. But it's not, that's not failure. That's not where the failure lies. The failure lies in like, if you decide that it was a failure and then you give up and you stop. And it sounds really kind of cheesy and pathetic, but that's exactly what it is. Because, you know, not getting something right the first time round or whatever, that's normal. You know, I was naive to think that I would have made this feature film and it would have been incredible and I would have been a famous director 24 hours after it came out and it would have gone wild on Twitter. Like, it's just not, it's not how things work. And so giving up is where the real failure lies. The reason I want to talk about this story in particular is because I really did come so close to giving up. And I'm really glad that I didn't let that part of myself get the better of me. And it was that experience and pushing through that kind of is a big part of what drives and motivates me still to this day. The thing I really wanted to pass on, the message I really wanted to give was, when the time comes, don't let that kind of failure get the better of you.